Hello. Before you do that, I have a quick view for you. So, Kristian TV 2023 cartoons did sending an email for Black Rhino Ranger. That means you added the quick update for Black Rhino Ranger's 30th birthday reminder. So, enjoy your video.
Ready for quiz number 2? But here it is. Which 90s Disney lady are you? Only way to find out. Pick a real world job. I will do social worker. Pick a Disney approved hobby. Let's dance. If you have a ball gown, what color would it be? Pink. Pick a class to take in your free time. Mythology. Pick a day with the girls. What was a public speaking group? Choose a meal to have together. Ooh, pizza. Pick a date night idea. The couple's art class. Pick a Valentine's gift. A designer purse. Pick a TV show to binge together. The Masked Singer. Pick a bucket list goal. How famous the YouTube page? Year Esmeralda, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, like 1996. You're creative and free spirit. You're not one to fit any normal role and you don't mind showing off and lighting up a room. You embrace difference in others too.
Cartoons.
And more, might adopt it, fit and more
You're watching Established Chernobyl.
Well, that answers your question.
Welcome to our Doom. Today we're gonna take a look at why Windows 95 was a big deal. But starting off in 1995, that's exactly the week. Didn't do that this week? Of course. Let's get started.
It is the night of August 23rd, 1995.
got your Jinko jeans
Miguel,
on,
1995 is still
Game Boy with you
history coming
because
out.
You have no idea how long this is going to take.
Movie!
And you and your friend are waiting in line at Best Buy with hundreds of other people, waiting for midnight to strike, because that is when the all-new Windows 95 operating system will be available for purchase on store shelves. But do you even know why
Still
you're
everybody
here?
knows about Microsoft
Does
95.
really anyone for that matter?
That still doesn't
What's the
matter.
big deal? Microsoft got the whole world excited for its latest operating system, Windows 95, with its retrospectively famous
Still's
Start
a
Me
little
Up
bit
campaign.
updated for Windows
Its marketing
95
was just
you know now.
incredible. It worked
That
so
still's
well,
got hit
thousands
now.
of people waited in line at many retail stores across the world to buy it, making it the most successful software launch in history. People knew that Windows 95 was an important milestone. But did
Still
they
working on
understand
Windows
why?
95. That still
Yeah.
got an update.
But also, probably not. What's really interesting about Microsoft's product launch is that it was able to even mesmerize people that frankly didn't really know what was going on. Today we are going to look at the causes and effects
Still
of this
living
great
on
software
Windows 95?
phenomenon,
You need a
and
good
explain why
update.
Windows 95 was
Still
so
get on a
important.
computer, but still the most talented.
The seemingly everlasting influence of the Windows 95 operating system can really be boiled down to three things: brilliant marketing, arguably the biggest component, innovative features, and just like many other incredibly successful things,
Ooh, I can barely know about
it's
technology
honestly
stuff.
really easy to overlook Windows 95
So
as
easy
this
going on.
revolutionary piece of software, even at the time. But keep in mind that's not the question this video is answering, but rather why Windows 95 was important. Being important and revolutionary are different things. But was Windows 95 revolutionary? Not really. Or at least
Oh
not as
my.
much as you think. Its
But
exorbitant amount of marketing
Start
actually
Windows
brought it a lot
95.
of criticism, particularly from
creative.
Apple users. Many of these people scoffed at the features that Windows 95 was boastfully advertising, and mockingly nicknamed it Macintosh 87. This is because they claimed that Macintosh did it first almost a decade earlier, and they actually weren't too far off. A new feature included in Windows 95 allowed users to name files up to 255 characters long, a huge improvement to the previous 11-character limit. The Macintosh had already supported file names as much as 31 characters long since its launch in 1984, and while 255 characters was much bigger than that,
That's
it was
still a
argued
lot
to be
bigger than
almost
that.
unrealistically
still
big.
get on.
Considering
That's
that
everything you
file
know
names
about
more than
computers about
120
Windows
characters long were
95.
extremely uncommon
That
at
still's
the
from
time,
1995.
Apple users felt that this was just excessive
know about
and
this.
unnecessarily adding on to a feature that Apple had included first. Basically, this was a feature the Macintosh had for over 10 years, along with a similar-looking GUI that used similar icons. I mean, if you really want to get technical,
similar.
Macintosh actually copied Xerox, and Windows just copied it afterwards, but that's a whole other video. But it didn't stop Apple users at the time from giving Windows 95 some bad PR. Yeah, the whole Mac versus PC
That
debate is
still's
a
a
lot
little
older
bit
than you
bizarre
might
to
think.
that.
But Microsoft's
Still
incredible
very
advertising
intensible.
serves as a testament for why people still
Still maybe
chose
a
Windows
member on
95
that.
over the already existing Mac OS instead. Yeah, Windows 95 was similar to the Macintosh, but its marketing gave it better personality. Computing had an interesting role in the 90s, which was to be as relatable as possible, to transform from this niche community into something that everybody did. Computers were soon
Everything's a
going to
little
be
bit
as
hard.
relatable and fun as cars or television. And Windows 95, in a lot of ways, was the one
Well,
that
that's
took
Dil
initiative
Pickles
on
right
achieving
now.
this goal. Their commercials were upbeat,
know about
exciting,
computer.
and appealed to the masses using pop culture references of the
Justin.
time.
This is Jennifer Aniston. I'm Matthew Perry. We're here to see Mr. Bill Gates about a possible starring role in the video guide to Microsoft Windows 95.
Their main focus was showing the operating system's simplicity and how much the user could do with such little effort.
Look, Maddie, I'm computing.
Windows 95 was less of a convoluted piece of software and more like a person, when in reality, Windows 95 honestly wasn't all that different from its
It's a lot
previous
of good
version,
keyboard
Windows
on the
3.1.
computer.
Visually,
Still got
yes, but
technology
under
on
the
that.
hood, not so much. With the way these
Still
previous
clicking.
versions were marketed, people basically just saw Windows as DOS wearing a fancy
Oh.
outfit. Windows 95 also ran on top of DOS. Only difference was DOS booted into Windows by default, so you didn't notice it. And of course, the ads wouldn't tell you that. All this fun advertising excited people and encouraged them to go out and see what all the fuss was about, including those that were just getting into computers and had no prior experience.
Ooh,
with
that's
them.
no cool about the
Consequently,
95.
many people weren't even exactly
Well,
sure
we
why
gotta
they were
worship
in
about
line,
the
but
computers
just knew
anyway.
that it was the start of something big, and that this product was going
I
to
know.
soon enrich their lives
Movies,
in one
video
way
games,
or another. Can the same thing
TV.
be said about the
Still know
Macintosh
about
in
that for
1995?
good old television.
I mean, what did their advertising look like in comparison?
Hey, who's the big shot?
Richard Browse.
VP of Finance?
He's in from New York.
Excuse me. I need a PC to run this on. Is there one I can use?
Oh, yes, sir. You can use mine.
No. I said a PC. This is a Windows disk.
Yeah, you can run that on here.
Be honest, which one are you gonna buy? Aside from
still
some
wait for
criticism that it
buying
was
it
just
before
copying the
those.
Macintosh, Windows 95 actually
That's
did
still
have
a
some
little
new
bit
features that
technology.
proved to be innovative for the
Still a little
time.
bit
The
connecting.
most notable being, of course, the Start menu, the main subject of all Windows 95 commercials. This was a big deal, particularly because it made all the difference when it came to organization. The
Well, I'm
Start
very
menu was
organized and
essentially the hub
creative.
of the computer.
Tell
All
me
of your
what you
files,
say, huh?
applications, and system configurations
That's still
were
a
just a
little
couple
bit
of clicks
figuring it
away.
out.
It was a big improvement on
Still
the
very
previous Windows version,
improvement on could be
3.1,
wrong.
where users had to use a tool called Program Manager, which was much more
Oh,
complicated.
I can barely
This
try
new
this.
Start menu, along with Windows Explorer, another new feature, made Program Manager unnecessary, and navigating the computer wasn't as much of a hassle. Again, there
Well,
was, of
pretty
course,
much.
criticism that this was just a
Woo!
ripoff of Macintosh's Apple menu. But the Start menu was arguably easier to use and more convenient. They were similar in that they were both system menus that gave the user access to applications, but the difference is how these applications are displayed. Many
Hello,
times you had to
world.
manually add your preferred applications to the Apple menu by digging for it through the actual file system. Windows Start menu did this for you, and if you didn't want something there, you could just remove it at any time. This was a great setup for non-tech savvy
Well,
computer
it's gonna be a
users,
great
and
day,
saved them an
isn't
extra
it?
step of
That
navigating
sounds a little bit
environments
harder
that they
than
were
that.
completely unfamiliar
Still,
with.
everything's a little bit
Compared to
harder
the
than
Apple
you
menu, the
thought.
Start menu also just stood out
Still, it's a
better.
little bit clicking on
Often,
that.
inexperienced Macintosh users would assume that the menu's icon was just a logo that
That's
didn't
still
do
really
anything.
special.
This would
isn't it?
actually be the case in future beta releases of OS X in the year 2000. Because of this, many users would initially struggle with navigating the machine. For those who don't know where to start on a Windows machine, it literally tells them. Another groundbreaking feature that Windows had to offer was the taskbar. If you were using multiple programs, it took just one click to switch back
Let's
and forth
just
between
click on
them.
that.
Much quicker and easier than the application menu on the Macintosh or other operating systems. Windows 95 also had a great feature known as plug and play. It had a lot of problems, but it was a brilliant concept that would prove to be essential in future releases. Rather than having to manually install hardware such as a printer,
Nothing's hard to
Windows
tell
would detect it
changeable.
automatically and install
That
the
is
drivers
very
for you,
unacceptable.
or prompt you to do so with
That's
a
still
CD-ROM.
shutting down.
And lastly, arguably the greatest feature of all that Windows 95 had was access to the internet. This wasn't inherently revolutionary. Most mainstream operating systems at the time had this, but it didn't matter because of one thing: timing. Timing caused Windows Vista to flop. It caused the Pet Rock to become popular, along with flagpole sitting, and in some respects, the Beatles. So much of something's success can be
we're
attributed
missing
to
it
just
going on for
coming
the
out at the right
internet
time.
way.
And Windows
Still
95
very
is no
popular.
exception.
On that
The
keyboard.
1990s were a very
Still
special
really
decade,
on the 90s,
and that's
still
because
really shot.
historically it can arguably be divided into two different decades because it has two eras that are so distinct. In the early 90s, from roughly 1988 to 1994, you have the sort of pre-internet Golden Girls MTV grunge era of the 90s. Still very much influenced by the 1980s because the decade, in
That's a
some
lot of
ways, hasn't
timeline.
really had much time to identify itself. It's from around 1996 to 2002 where the 90s are really starting to solidify. You have an
That's
era filled
real,
with
isn't
AOL,
it?
boy bands, and a dot-com bubble.
That's still not
Not that all
history.
of these trends are mutually exclusive, but when looking at the decade through an historical lens, it's clear to see which trends took priority in which time frames. 1995 is smack in the middle. It is the transitioning point
That's
between
still
these two
Scott
eras,
in the middle.
essentially embodying both characteristics of
Very
these periods.
intense.
Of course, you might think I sound totally crazy bringing all this stuff up about two eras colliding. And you could
Colliding
be right.
eras.
I mean, you could really make this argument about any decade. But the 90s especially. Just like the 60s was a cultural revolution, the 90s was a technological one. Defining the exact time an era starts and ends is totally subjective. But in all honesty, it could be an explanation
I can
for people's
barely
thoughts
try.
and behaviors at the time.
You gotta click in it.
In 1995, it was clear
Still
that the
in the middle
internet
of
was going
95.
somewhere big.
Leaving
It was
the
the year
web.
that most people were just getting introduced to it, and going back to its influential marketing, Windows 95 acted as a friendly gateway to the World Wide Web.
You
didn't
see?
have to be
That's
a
the World
computer
Wide
geek to
Web.
use it. You could be anybody.
Still gonna click it on
Other
that.
operating systems didn't really do that. So yeah, Windows
That's
95
still got the
wasn't
internet
the only
coming
OS to
too.
support the internet.
That
but everyone
sounds a
knew
little
it
bit
as
serious,
the OS to
yeah?
support the internet. By 1999, your grandmother was using the internet. You could not say the same thing back in 1992.
I guess I'll try
It's
this
clear that
one.
the internet was going to inevitably
Still going
boom
on
by
the
end
internet
of the
for makes me
1990s.
hard.
But Microsoft was just smart enough to be the ones to lead the way. Windows 95 did not start the growing popularity of the World Wide Web, but it was part of it. It was both the catalyst and the leader. When seeing the big picture, it makes perfect sense why Windows 95 was so popular, and why it continues to influence us today. Its marketing allowed personal computers to become even more
That's a
personal
lot of
than
good
they already
computers
were,
coming clicking along.
making something complicated like an operating
Still
system
complicated on
relatable
Windows.
to most people.
People behind the
All of
magic
its design
of Windows
configurations
95.
set a precedent
still is a
for
lot,
how an
but
operating system
I miss
should
Windows
look
95
and feel.
too.
And its timing was the
That's
last
very
ingredient in
awesome.
creating a perfect storm of circumstances
That's still
that would
the history
transform
coming
Windows
through.
95 into this technological phenomenon. And it's apparent that Microsoft knew this, because they did everything to prepare for it. Many features introduced, or at least emphasized in Windows 95, are still seen in many operating systems today. Features that likely never need to be changed because they were so convenient and timeless. Windows 95 was the OS where Microsoft finally found its sweet spot, and all future versions would essentially
that's a
just
good
build
spot.
on top of it and make it better. And
Still
Microsoft
going
has
down
been
better.
able to start us up ever since.
Gonna shut down.
What was your experience with Windows 95? Did you enjoy using it? Too young to remember? Let me know all that in the comments below.
Well, that's all for this. See you next week of the 30 weeks of 30 years.
Oh, it's over. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Well, that's it, folks. Bye-bye.
Rocket.